All right, we're recording. All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Joe, you got your flag up there?
We have a flag.
All right, so all those that can, please stand or elevate yourself out of your chair somehow. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Just think if we were trying to do that with somebody overseas, that'd be really delayed. All right, roll call, please.
All right, when I state your name, please call out where you're attending from. Rick Hamill.
Highland.
Tammy Flowers is attending from Highland. Jenny Frederick.
Jennifer Frederick, attending from Highland, Michigan.
Judy Cooper.
Highland, Michigan.
Brian Howe.
Highland, Michigan.
Beth Lewis.
Highland, Michigan.
Joseph Salvia.
Island, Michigan.
All righty, all present.
Okay, so have any apparent changes to make to the agenda, which is a first. Maybe we should have a celebration for that. May not be. All right, so somebody would like to move to approve?
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support Lewis.
Be moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamill.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
All right. Motion carries.
Okay, yes, consent agenda approval. Somebody like to make a motion?
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
I'm sorry, who was the support for that?
How?
Okay. All right, ready to vote?
Yep.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Kirk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
How? Yes.
Mr. Hamill.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
I
Motion
have,
carries.
sorry. I have one question on that if I could.
Sure.
We've approved the garden watering contract. Usually we approve the mowing contract at the same time. Was that not up now?
I didn't look to see if it was.
Okay,
We'll get it on the next round.
I'll check on it though.
sorry, I should have called earlier in the week on that one.
No problem.
So you leave the job as treasurer.
Stop.
It's nice out, what can I say?
My goodness. Lucky you.
Yeah.
All right, next item is announcements and information inquiry. Virtual prayer breakfast is May 6th at 9 a.m. Is that going to be listed on our website, or where's that going to show up?
We can get that information to you. We're gonna release it through different Facebook pages.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Well,
fine.
and it'll also go on the e-blast and all that.
All right, good.
Mhm.
The parade and festivities on Saturday, May 15th, 2021, are going to be at 10 o'clock a.m. And I'm adding a little, if possible, just in case there's something that comes up that pulls a plug, but we needed to be scheduled. So then the other thing is that we're hoping that the fireworks are going to go off Saturday, June 26th, but I think we'll have to have a further discussion when we after public comment, just to make sure that the board's comfortable with that. So at this point, we're going to do public comment. And what I'd like to do, I guess you can say what you want at public comment, but we're going to need you to, I think it would be the time if you wanted to say something about the boat. I see a lot of you are here that are probably here about the docking ordinance. So anybody that'd like to start with public comment, now's your shot. You got 3 minutes and one time only, not multiple conversations on it. I think we did a pretty good job a month ago, so go ahead.
Denise Lavasser. I would like to repeat what I said a month ago, that I am in support of the ordinance as drafted. I appreciate the hard work that went into it. I think that Gary, the attorney, has done an excellent analysis of the impact of it at the last meeting. And since that last meeting, I've had multiple feedback from members of Seven Harbors, and they are full force of the reactions I've gotten in favor of the proposal. So we really appreciate the hard work that went into it, and we hope that it passes.
All right. Anybody else like to make public comment? Use the raise your hand or whatever technique you, okay, Dyson. So let's enter Kathy Dyson.
Unmute yourself, please.
Can you unmute yourself, Mr. Dyson? Not working for some reason.
Asked him to unmute a couple times. I don't know why it's not popping up for him.
Can we unmute him?
All I can do is request. I don't know why it's not popping up for him.
Can you find your microphone?
Put your mouse over the bottom of the screen.
Does that sound? Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, sir. I don't know who you are because it says iPhone though. Can you identify yourself?
Oh, yes. Good evening. I'm Jeff Wishart, resident of Seven Harbors. I make a public statement real quick.
Sure.
It's on the bottom left. It's her, she's got the floor, or go ahead.
Go right ahead.
I'd just like to say I appreciate the hard work too. But Denise supports it. I second the motion. I'd like to thank you for all your hard work, and that's it. First Zoom meeting for me. We've done other audio meetings but at work, but that was it. So I support the measure, and I hope it goes through. Thank you for your hard work there. Did you hear me or no?
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Ms.
Have a good-
Anderson, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, is that me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say, I sent Rick an email and, Sue Anderson, 3301 Saddle Ridge. I really like the Zoom format. It's the first time I've ever been able to hear anything that you guys say during your business meetings. And I hope that you'll continue to use Zoom, even if you go back to, meeting in person. I'm sure it's something that you could, do as easily as you're doing it now, even if you're, in the same room or whatever. But for people who have a hard time hearing like I do, it makes it so much better and so much more enjoyable. And I really get a lot more out of it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yep. Well, we'll do our best to make that happen. It is actually much more difficult to make it work that way, but I agree with you. So, all right. So, Mr. Oldestvig.
Justin can do anything.
Your microphone's not working there.
We can't hear you, Mr. Oltez. You need to turn your microphone up.
This is where Zoom has trouble.
He's muted now.
You're muted. We can't hear you, You muted yourself, Mr. Oltez, and the microphone was too low. It wasn't that you weren't unmuted.
Aw.
Okay, now you're unmuted. Now you got to get your microphone level up.
Volume.
Still can't hear you. Okay.
Radio.
Must mean you're good with the ordinance. I'll take it as that. Is that correct? Thumbs up is good with the ordinance. All right. So thanks, Tom, for trying anyways. All right. So who else did we have that would like to speak? Mr.
This is Sean Whalen.
Sean Whalen. Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Well, yeah, esteemed trustees, supervisor, and ordinance officer, I appreciate your time too. I read the rules. I sent an email last week, Friday, midday. I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but to introduce myself, I'm a Highland Township resident. I live on White Lake off White Oak Beach, and I'm a father of 3. And I was especially excited to read all the reasons why you're addressing the ordinance, because as you've probably seen, our lake's been freakishly overcrowded last year, and I am suspecting this year it's a trend. So I like that you're taking a proactive look at addressing it, and my concerns. You mentioned many very noble concerns in the preamble about safety, environmental impact, shoreline erosion, and the safety of the residents on there. And that's mostly what I'm concerned about. I have 3 young kids, and most days of the summer, I don't feel safe to be out on the waters. And as I explained in my email, I hope that the township is also on a quest to eliminate illegal boats. Of course, we have to share the lake with a lot of legal residents. A lot of people do have legal rights to the lakes, and those people, everyone who has a legal right to it, absolutely should have it. But I'm hoping that your goal is aligned with mine, to have the ordinance more enforceable, less subjective, so it's easy for the township. It's black and white. It's easy, non-subjective for them to enforce and stop any illegal boats for all of our benefit. And I did have a couple of specific recommendations for change, or a couple of questions that I thought weren't crystal clear and weren't black and white, and was a little subjective. I don't know when you tell me when the right time is to speak about my specific comments.
Actually, I have your email here. So if you want to go ahead and speak on it. Somebody must have 2 devices going at once, so.
That was Mr. Whalen. I muted him to try and stop the feedback.
Okay.
I think that was me, sorry.
Yeah, I can read them out if you want me to read them for you, or do you want to do it?
No, give me 1 second, Mr. Hamill. In the language in 24.5.2.f, I think as written, it basically says, watercraft access for outlots, parks, easements, and common areas shall be permitted only when, and the wording that was in there was, if there's like proof of it, including an aerial photo, or if the enforcement officer feels like it's appropriate. And my thoughts were, if you want to make it black and white and easily enforceable, I would reword that to eliminate all the verbiage of aerial photos and of the township's opinion, and just say a government authority, right? That makes it really easy for the township, I believe. So my proposal is watercraft access from outlots, parks, easements, and common areas shall be permitted only when approved in writing by a government authority such as DNR, DEQ, or Eagle, and subject to the following. And then you had some other rules in there. So if that's the spirit or the intent of that rewrite, is to make it more easily enforceable in black and white so the township's not at risk, that's my recommendation. And it can be real simple, right? Anyone who has a legal right to the waterways should be able to produce a legal document from a government authority.
Okay, and then you had a second one that's very similar to
Yeah.
it.
Yep. So then further in there, again, 24.5.2.f.iv is the exception clause. There's an exception clause under the docs. And in the same spirit, I just suggest the wording of where lake access has been lawfully established in writing by a government authority as an outlot, park, easement, or common space prior to adoption of this ordinance. So what I essentially changed, Mr. Hamill, was instead of saying, aerial photos or the opinion of the ordinance officer, I just replaced all that 4 or 5 different examples with lawfully established in writing by a government authority.
Okay, so the 3 minutes has expired.
All right.
Wait, before you respond, should we take more public comment and get that over with?
Make a comment to him to make sure that he understands that we're not ignoring it. So after the public comment, when we get into the other, get into voting on it, there's a couple of questions we can ask the attorney that would relate to your statements.
Yeah.
So we'll do that at that point. All right, other comments? We got some iPhone who's, we'll do all the public people, Joe, first.
Okay.
Um,
Don't know who iPhone is, but if you identify yourself, feel free to go ahead and speak, please.
hello? Well, they just muted themselves.
I was iPhone. Yeah, I'd like to hear Tom speak, but no, I'm sorry. I must have unmuted. Forgive me, gentlemen or people. No.
Okay, well, did you want to say something or?
It seems, well, a government authority, who's going to determine such authority? I understand there's a lot of people getting in by certain ways, and I raised 2 children on this lake as well. But that's the only thing that struck a chord with me is who's going to identify such authorities,
Sure.
DQ, et cetera. So.
Could you identify yourself?
Yeah, I did earlier. Jeff Wishart over on Lakeview.
Oh, this is their second comment?
Well, I accidentally unmuted or something. Sorry, forgive me.
Oh, okay.
I love the bridge behind you. Looks like a nice bed.
Thanks.
That's all. I apologize for
No
getting
problem.
more comment.
Okay, anybody else? Denise, only one time.
I don't get to respond?
No, sorry
Okay.
about that. We're trying to limit it because it's it is pretty difficult to get everybody rolling here. So anybody else with public comment? Mr. Salvia?
Very quickly regarding Memorial Day events, we had to submit a COVID plan to Village of Milford. So we're waiting on that. People are calling and asking me about the parade. With respect to Highland activity, Commander Tom is with us tonight. He and I will continue to work to coordinate those early morning cemetery visits, and we will make sure that Tammy is aware of the correct time schedule for that. So those things, Tom, we still on for that, right? So those are for sure things. Beyond that, parades, If they don't like my COVID plan, we may not have a Memorial Day parade.
Black plastic is pretty hard to do.
So once I get some feedback, we'll fill in the township and our community as well. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Mike Pawelski here.
Mike, go ahead.
Thank you for taking my comments on the public comments. Speaking on behalf of the request for the rezoning, I believe it was called the Mesopotamian Meat Market or something years and years and years ago. And it was unanimously rejected, I believe, by your planning commission approximately a month ago. So we're hoping that you will, follow their lead, because the residents in the neighborhood are united and very against any industrial warehouse manufacturing on a single family residential spot zoning request. And we're wondering how much does that planning commission impact your vote tonight? Because we'd like to put this to an end tonight. Is that possible?
It won't be put to bed tonight because it's an introduction. So we introduce it, and then next month we take that on.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes?
Actually, you have the ability to not introduce an ordinance. In the rezoning context, if you have no interest in possibly adopting it, you can move to not introduce it and deny the rezoning tonight.
Okay, and the other way around for something else. I got you.
May I finish my comment?
Yes, you may.
We're very unified, obviously, against this. It's like having right in your backyard. And we're just hoping that the board here tonight will help the residents out as much as they can and understand how important it is to move against this. There is no buffer zone, there is no safety, there is no anything fruitful for the residents that surround this industrial warehouse manufacturing request. Thank you, Mr. Hamel.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'm calling into the public comment. I appreciate everybody's comments, and we'll move into the next item. It's pending business. I guess we'll get started with that one right off the bat. This is the proposed ordinance number 470 to amend the lake access and docking regulations. So anybody want to make a motion to adopt?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 470 to amend lake access and docking regulations in Article 3 of Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances for the Charter Township of Highland.
Support.
We moved and supported. Any discussion?
I have a comment
Yes.
or a question. Isn't White Lake, is that what we're mostly speaking about, is White Lake? Aren't they a public access?
Yes.
If I own a boat, I don't have to have any ties to that lake, correct? I can go and boat on that lake every day.
As long as you've accessed it through a legal access.
Yeah, on Duck Lake Road.
Yep, state access.
Okay, that was just a question.
At which point you would be your sticker would probably be checked and somebody'd have a record of it. So.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion?
Isn't it limited to how many parking spaces are at the access to?
That's correct. All right. Any other discussion?
Mr. Hamel, if I may, Mr. Whalen raised some questions that I think you said would be answered before you voted on this.
Yes.
The questions he raised were that they had the same theme, which was to allow for the watercraft access from the outlets and what have you, if approved by a governmental authority.
In writing.
And that is not in tune with how lake access rights have been developed in Michigan over more than a century. I mean, lake access rights are usually established when a subdivision is developed. Quite frankly, the only governmental permit that I'm aware of right now for lake access rights is from the state for a marina permit. And even in that context, my understanding that the state, although they have the statute and they have the rules, they really don't exercise their permitting authority. So it sounds like a reasonable approach, but in this context where lake access rights have been basically established by real property law over more than a century, it's not a workable solution here. Nobody would be able to produce that except somebody that had a, I'll call it a DEQ or Eagle Marina permit.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
Mr. Hamill?
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Belvray, I understand your point. The spirit of my comment was more to prevent illegal people from illegally occupying because they feel like it. My thought was to suggest using an in-writing government authority. I do know that the Eagle, previously the DEQ, previously the DNR, I believe, all granted access to the marinas. And if it's not applicable, that's, maybe we need to find something else. But my intention there was to stop. I'm sure you've all seen it, but a lot of people have been illegally tying their boats up. So to be more clear on my point, yes, it's a public lake. Of course, everyone has access to use the waters. We share the waters. It's the docking and mooring that has some more rules about that. And when you have hundreds and hundreds of illegal boats permanently moored, docked illegally, then when those boats crowd the lake because they have illegal access, that's what causes the big problem. So I don't know if you have a different suggestion for wording on there, but to be clear, if we can't require, and I don't know why we couldn't require Eagle to put in writing for every dock other than a riparian owner, I don't know why that couldn't happen.
Well, I think probably the biggest problem with that, Sean, is that if you stop and try and figure out who owns every dock, that means that somebody's got to go out there and physically police that. And to put it in writing, I think you create a scenario that makes it even more, that almost takes all the work we've done and the simplicity of it and loads it up with a layer of difficulty making that happen. I think the key here is that this is not written in stone. So I think that the best case scenario here is let's put this into play and let's then see how it performs. And then also in the meantime, we can always go back and do just what we're doing today. And that's amending that ordinance. So if we can find something that fits the sense of what you're trying to accomplish as well, and make it work, then we can always correct that at a later date. So I think that to try and change the ordinance right now and change the wording, we're going to have to go back. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gary. We'd probably have to go back and go through a whole nother month of process here. So, but I think the way it was written, I understand that we also are a government agent, so or authority, and that's why we've made Sean Bell our ordinance officer. He is an officer of the law, and so he does have the authority to enforce. And this is to make it easier to enforce, not make it harder to enforce. So, Sean, did you want to say anything?
Mr. Hamel, thank you. I wanted to just kind of try to give you a little clarity that I think what Sean's question is it was impossible to verify, the boats that were at docks. I'd get wrong MC numbers. I'd have to take them to the sheriff to have them run. It was not an enforceable ordinance the way that it was. So to try to make it simple is simplified to make it a little, is what we did is we just take it down to 4 boats per dock. That's what they were allowed before. So basically the 4 boats. Now keep in mind that a jet ski counts as a boat. So if somebody wants to rent their dock out and have 4 pontoon boats, as soon as they have 2 jet skis show up, they're in violation. So we just tried to make it a little more simple because it wasn't enforceable. The sheriff couldn't enforce it. So that's why we went and we just stuck with 4 boats. It's cut and dry. Like I said, you can have a jet boat, a pontoon boat, jet skis. So I think that, and the other thing, to go back to where you were talking about the aerial photographs, that section there, I believe, was really geared more towards the outlots and like rivers and things like that. That was to try to give some guidelines for some of the areas that have been outlots, they've been docked, the boats have been docked in those areas forever. And so that where it references aerial photographs and things like that is we can go back through our systems at the township and look at various aerial photographs and say that, yes, this has been a boat dock. I've been docking boats here for 20 years. So we're a little grandfathered into it. So just wanted to kind of throw it in to see if that helps answer some of those questions that you have.
Mr. Bell, all due respect, I believe if you allow 4 boats per dock, the volume of illegal, now I guess they may be legal, but the volume of boats on the lake would increase substantially. I'm sure you've all seen it. I don't want to get specific, but on Jackson Boulevard, there was a number of houses that had 4 pontoon boats at each dock. And you drive by and you think, you know that riparian owner, if they are a riparian owner, they don't have 4 pontoon boats. They're renting them out, which if it's not illegal, it seems like it should be. And I think it is. I think the intent was there. So if that's how it's written, I think we're going to go the wrong way a lot. If your intention is, I don't know if your intention is to make it easy or to lower boat traffic on the lake, but that's going to make traffic go way up.
All right.
One of these.
Go ahead, Sean. Do you have anything else to say or not?
I did. Yeah, it's always been 4 boats. So we haven't changed that number at all. It's just always been 4 boats. It's just so that number's always been that. So if they want to have 4 pontoon boats, they can have 4 pontoon boats, but that's their max.
Right, but wasn't it always 4 boats registered to that house? So if a house had 4 boats, so be it. But more than likely, one household was only on the lake with 1 vehicle at a time. And now if those 4 boats don't have to be to that house, there likely could be 4 times the traffic at that house.
All right, Sean Wayland, we're going to call it on that. I appreciate it. And in answer to that, I think Sean can agree to this too. He explained earlier that it's impossible to enforce. We can't get the tag numbers off the boats. So that's why we made it 4 boats. So any other comments from the board, discussion? All right.
Comment?
Yep.
I thought we had talked about the fact that the township really can't enforce if this is this a still a subdivision or association fee issue for enforcement?
I believe it is. There's so many associations on the lake that they all have different ordinances, different rules they have to follow. Gary, is that something that a homeowners association can regulate?
Yes, I mean, the homeowners, well, as a very general statement, which involves a whole lot of background to make sure the association is legally set up and has the authority, but assuming they have the authority and they have rules, they can enforce their own rules. And if their own rules are more restrictive than our ordinance, they can enforce those. We cannot enforce private subdivision rules or restrictions.
Thank you. That was my understanding.
All right. Any other board questions? All right, then let's have a vote.
All right. Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in this thing for the hard work and the comments. And I hope I think we've done a good job of trying to improve and not turn it into a nightmare. And so, like I said, it's a flexible document that can be changed. Nothing's written in concrete, fortunately. So thank you for all those who showed up to make comments on that tonight. So we'll move on to the next item. New business. Nope, budget amendment. Almost missed that one. This is a budget amendment for the sheriff's building renovation. See, now I don't have it up on the screen, Tammy, and I'm lost.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just,
Page 131.
we already approved the concept last meeting. And this budget amendment is just a follow-up to provide the money for what we already approved.
All right, so want to make a motion on that?
Motion to approve the amendment, Salvia.
Support, Cooper.
It moved and supported. Any discussion on the board? All right, let's vote.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we're going to go to new business. Gary, let's reiterate here that we've got two items that are proposed zoning ordinance amendments for rezoning. And item A, you said that we could go ahead and vote on that item?
Right. In a charter township, you have two steps to adopting an ordinance. The first is to introduce it. And if it's introduced, then the second step is to adopt it. There's no law that requires you to introduce every ordinance that comes before you. If an ordinance comes before you and you are simply not interested and have no intention and are sure right now that you will have no intention of adopting it, you can simply move to not introduce it. And in this context, you would include in that motion and deny the requested rezoning. In my opinion, that is an option available to you. You don't, if you're of the mind, if the majority of the board is of the mind that this is not an ordinance we're ever going to adopt, you don't have to put everybody on hold for a month to say that. You can say that tonight by not introducing and denying the requested rezoning.
All right, I guess I'll go ahead with this one here. And to that point, I'd like to make the motion to not introduce this ordinance amendment number Z018 to rezone parcel 11-15-401-011 2070 North Milford Road. And I'd like to recommend that we deny that.
Take the word recommend out of that.
I'd like to
and deny the requested
rezoning. How's that? Did I do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Frederick, second the motion.
All right. Any discussion at the board level? Okay, I'll just make a small comment on that. I think that that particular structure has been kind of way out of range for a long time, even when it was originally built. But there is truly a case where the neighbors who surround it completely have a legitimate gripe to recommend that we choose not to go along with it. So I appreciate everybody's comments. We got emails, we got other people who have talked about it. So on that note, let's call for a vote.
Okay, Mr. Salvia? So to clarify, a yes vote would deny the change to the ordinance.
Say again?
Voting yes means you want to deny the change.
You're breaking up.
Somebody else want
Voting,
to try?
Joe, voting yes would mean that you
Deny.
deny the change.
Okay.
That you're not
Salvia, yes
introducing
to deny.
You're not introducing it. Yes means you're not even going to entertain it.
Correct.
Exactly.
It doesn't deny it or it doesn't approve it. It simply means you're not going to introduce it.
The motion says it does not introduce and it denies.
Okay.
All right, continuing with voting. Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel,
Mr. Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the next item, B. I'd like to make a motion to introduce proposed zoning ordinance amendment Z019 to rezone parcel number 1115326017, vacant North Milford Road, approximately 1.7 acres, from OS Office Services District to C2 General Commercial District. So this is an introduction. It's not a vote on approval.
I second to introduce Frederick.
Okay, so we've motioned and seconded, and anybody have any questions or comments on the board? All right, then we'll move ahead with a vote.
All right, Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel,
Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the next item is item C, amendments to the Highland Township Employee Handbook. Tammy, you want to discuss that at all before we?
Yep, we got 3 topics. We want to define seasonal employees in our handbook. It's a category we've been using in practice, and this just puts it down on paper so it's very clear. The second one is the PTO, a chance for employees to choose to cash out some of their PTO, up to 1 week's worth per year. So we've frequently seen situations where employees, they're accruing in every pay period some additional PTO that goes into their bank. And once their bank hits the maximum, then they stop accruing. So if they don't use it when they hit their max, then they're basically losing out on the PTO that they would normally have earned. So it's not always convenient for people to take time off in a particular time period. They may be in a department that's in a busy time where there's a project that needs to get done. And this allows for more flexibility for that, and makes it so employees can, flex their time a little bit and still benefit from the PTO that we've granted them. And then the third one is care of equipment. This is something that we put into practice this past year because of using laptops that employees can take home for the work at home situation. And this is just getting it incorporated into the personnel policy along with everything else. Any questions on that?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So on the PTO buyout, it says you can request a minimum of 7.5 hours. So could you do that technically 5 times a year?
Yep. If you just take it one day at a time, you can do it 5 different times, however many times you want to, up to 5.
Okay,
You could take a week all at once.
okay. So that doesn't need to be designated in there, I guess is my question.
As far as, I mean, I think.
Spelling it
that's-
out.
Right. The way we wrote it, I think it works.
Okay,
We did present that to Laura Amsbuchler, our human resource attorney. So
Okay.
reviewed. So somebody make a motion to approve?
I would move to approve the updates to the employee handbook as presented.
Support Howe.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
All right. If there are no other questions, Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
and Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now that we've approved that, the next item is a budget amendment to for the PTO cash payout. So I'll make the motion to approve the budget amendment for the PTO cash payout.
Support Howe.
Moved and supported. Any questions on that one? It covers the action we just made. So, all right, we'll have a vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Howe, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next item is Resolution 2107, Charter Township of Highland water supply rates. Every year we have to go through this, and now we got, I don't know why, microscopic. So I guess I'll read the letter from the Water Resource Commission, and I'll abbreviate it. We've reviewed the financial condition of the Charter Township of Highland Well Water Supply System Fund for the operational period ending September 30th, 2020. Based on the projected costs for the operation and maintenance, the WRC recommends that the water supply fixed rate remain the same. That's $100 for the first 1,500 cubic feet of water per quarter for 21-22 rate year. And then the WRC also recommends the volume change for the water supply system increase $1.25 from $16.50 to $17.75 per thousand cubic foot for water usage exceeding 1,500 cubic feet for the 2021-2022 rate year. We request that the changes our charges are adopted by the township effective July 1st, 2021. So we need to provide the adopted resolution. For those that are on the water supply, to understand it, what it does is when you go into sprinklering, running sprinkler systems and stuff, that pushes you up into the high use rate, which is over 1,500 cubic feet per year. That's the rationale behind that, because it's heavy usage. So somebody want to make a motion?
I would move to approve resolution 21-07 to approve the water supply rates through Oakland County Water Resources for the years 2021, 2022.
Support Lewis.
Okay, moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, vote please.
All right, Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next item, civic service agreement, AP, ACH, and vendor portal. Who wants to take that one? Is that,
I mean, the letter is pretty self-explanatory. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I'll just read the letter in case those that don't know what we're talking about. For the service agreement for the license fee for software for accounts payable, automated clearinghouse, and vendor portal. It's a one-time fee with no annual maintenance support fee. With more demand for ACHs, that's working with the bank through your account numbers, from vendors, and more issues with the postal service. In parentheses, we've had checks with the same zip code take 3 weeks to deliver. So when you're writing checks to pay vendors, a 3-week delay can be a little bit long. So this software will provide the ability to make payments electronically with more security. So a listing of the ACH priority at this time is as follows: union dues, state withholding, deferred compensation 457, defined contribution 401, garnishments, utilities, and GFL, which is the trash facility. So somebody want to make a motion to approve?
I would move to approve the AP, ACH, and vendor portal one-time maintenance support fee as presented.
Frederick, second.
Okay, moved and supported. Any additional discussion?
I have one question. This does not limit the ACHs to the ones listed, right?
Correct, it does not.
That's just saying what we're looking at right now.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it didn't limit it.
All right, vote please.
All right, Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia. Mr. Salvia?
Salvia, yes.
Okay. Mrs. Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe?
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick?
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right, the next item is Highland Township Hall renovation expansion. This is a construction manager contract award. I'll read the letter for those that don't have it in front of them. The construction manager selection committee consisted of Rick Hamel, Tammy Flowers, Jennifer Frederick, Beth Corwin, the planning director, and our consultant, Mike O'Leary from Lindhout Associates Architects. Lindhout Associates issued a request for a proposal, RFP, for a construction manager to 4 companies that all expressed interest in the project and had experience working with Lindhout Associates and or Highland Township. The selection committee met to assess 4 proposals based on the qualifications and fee structure submitted in their proposals. The costs were evaluated based on a percentage fee for the cost of the work, pre-construction services, and general conditions estimated. The contractors were able to determine these costs based on the current budget and schedule as provided by Lindhout. You can see the attached cost summary. That's a little bit too much to put on the screen here to understand what we're doing. So the committee was able to narrow down the list to 2 contractors, Contracting Resources, Inc. and the Summit Company, which were both invited for interviews conducted on March 24th, 2021. Based on experience level, cost of services, and the responses given by the companies during the interviews to solicit their understanding of the totality of the required work, the selection committee would recommend the construction manager contract be awarded to the Summit Company. The initial contract will be a percentage fee of 2.34% of the construction cost, plus the cost of pre-construction services in the amount of $12,620, which will be reduced to $11,620 once the project moves into construction. Once subcontract bidding is complete, there will be an amendment to the contract for guaranteed maximum price, which will represent the all costs of the construction for the project. So I'd like to make the motion to authorize the township supervisor to sign the AIA document A-133 agreement between owner and construction manager as constructor, where the basis of payment is the cost of work plus a fee with a guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the township hall renovation and addition after it has been approved by the township attorney. Gary, is that good?
That's good, and I do have some changes to make to that standard form agreement. In a perfect world, I would have had those done before your meeting, but you've never known me to live in a perfect world. So those will probably be done today, tomorrow or Wednesday, and circulated. It's just to clean up some language that I'm not comfortable with being signed as is.
And this is not the first time that we've had those questions with AIA contracts. So
no, it's not. They're standard form agreements. They are very thorough. They cover all the bases. They don't, they anticipate all the things that may come up and address them, but just on a few of these things, I think we need to address them slightly differently.
Right. And we also submitted it to our insurance company, and they listed some items as well to address. So those all need to be.
And Tammy got those comments from Craig Manser over to me on Friday, and I will incorporate those in the changes that I make.
Great. So that was my motion. Anybody support?
Support, subject to additions or corrections as stated
By the attorney?
by the attorney.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on that?
Rick, for those of us not in the construction business, could you just quickly go over what the responsibilities of this company would be?
This company is there to oversee every aspect of the project. They also are the ones that will put out for bid all of the components like electrical, cement, steel, any of the trades. So they'll take it out for bid, and then they'll select the best contractor for that portion, aggregate everything, and then that's how they'll come up with the guaranteed maximum price. And then it's at that point where we have to make that decision to move or not. And if we move, we save $1,000 right from the start, from the way I read this. If we don't, then we have to drop back and punt. And we don't really want to punt, but so anyways, I think that I had heard a comment at one point in time from somewhere that why would we be doing this project in this type of environment? And I think that one of the things that is kind of difficult for government versus a homeowner or a private individual is that a private individual can decide to make a decision to pull the plug on anything anytime they want, and make the decision when they think they want to move forward. Yeah, materials are up. We don't know what they're going to be when we start. They could go down. The difference in the governmental end of things is that if we wait till the economy takes a dump and prices go down, how do you think that that's going to make the people in our community feel when we're spending money to rebuild a town hall when everybody else is trying to find jobs? We're in an economy that really is not, it needs work, it needs jobs, and it's the opportunity that we have as a community to move forward. If we delay, it just, tell me any time in your life that you've ever really seen any projects that got cheaper if you waited for a year or two. It just doesn't work that way. So I think now's the time to do it. We've got the resources to do it. And it's just the opposite way that government works versus normal environment. So you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And so, damn it, we're going to do it. And I think it's the right thing to do. We're going to give some people some work, and we're going to keep our economy rolling. And the public is going to end up with a building that'll last another 50 to 75, 100 years, depends on how everybody wants to take care of it. And we can be proud of it here in Highland moving forward, just like the fire halls. And nothing but positive comments about that fire hall. And I think that's a great thing. So now's the time. So that's my comment. And I guess we can vote on this unless somebody else has something they want to say.
I just want to put my 2 cents in that, being in COVID has really exacerbated the situation we have with our building. And in order to run an election the way that we're going to have to run it, we need a lobby that, we can have more than one person in. And this will make it possible for us to do that.
All right. So thank you, Tammy. Anybody else have any comments they'd like to make?
It's just kind of awesome that previous boards have been frugal and we've saved for this for a long time, and it's really exciting to be able to move forward, and it's so needed. So thank you to the diligence of years and years of saving for this.
All right. So let's do a vote.
All right. Mr. Salvia?
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe?
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick?
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel?
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so before we disembark here, I mentioned the fireworks, and I kind of want to get a feel just from the board. Do you individually feel it's smart to plan on June 26th, or should we push this towards September? Now, there's a couple of things happening here. We're going to be ripping the building apart after June. So it might be good to do it at that time, and the school will be done with their project later in the fall. So that means September would be better in terms of they're putting in a new driveway to the north of us. So, and then I'm concerned about the COVID stuff. How can we really do it? The parade's a little different. You can keep people separated, but when you've got the fireworks, it's kind of hard to go and make everybody sit 6 feet apart. But so I don't know. We have to make a decision, because I don't want to lose. If the fireworks company goes out of business on us, we lost our money on that, and we postponed it last year. So I'd like to at least get a feeling for how everybody feels on that. So I'm thinking later in the fall would be better. I would feel better about the possibility that more people have been vaccinated. We've got a better opportunity to know that we're not going to turn it into a big spreading event. And I don't want to feel responsible for that. So, Joe?
I would support delaying it just to be safe.
I agree.
Well, and with all the unknowns, I mean, I would support delaying it also.
Yeah, it's just new variants, and how do you police it?
Again, it's hard to enforce.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that too, with everybody else about delaying it.
All right. Brian?
I agree. I think it's what would be our cutoff date with the fireworks company? What is the fail safe?
Well, we could go into October if you wanted, but that's
no. I'm saying for the June. If we decide, obviously we're against the June, but what was the last day we'd have? What's our cutoff? Decision date for June.
They want to know now.
Okay, yeah, I'd say if that's the case, I think it's time to push it back, because if it was later on, it'd be different. But yeah, we're talking. Yeah, I agree.
So are you looking at like Labor Day weekend?
Yeah, somewhere in there. I think that if that's a good weekend, we could shoot for that. If it's not already taken by somebody else, but if I get on it, tomorrow or Wednesday, we can get a date set up and we can take it from there. Get a couple of dates so we're sure of it. So, Tammy, how do you feel?
I have mixed feelings, it's a patriotic, my birthday's on the 4th of July,
I would
right?
say it's
So
Tammy's birthday.
I can't vote against fireworks on the celebrating the 4th of July, but there's questions in my mind with regard to the school project and how much that's going to affect, for sure it would be parking. So we'd have to figure out another parking plan and all that. So there's some logic to going to the fall.
Yeah, because the school project has to be completed before they open school.
Right.
And so the parking lot will be open and available then. So, all right, then I'll move ahead with the essence of going for September. Joe, you had another?
Well, when you're done with this topic, one quick question, just a brief answer. Any progress or thoughts on the water, bringing water in or water and sewer? Any updates, short term, long term? I'm getting a couple of questions. I just want to give an answer to people.
Water is not, it's on my.
Just a brief response.
Water is not something that's on my agenda because it's an incredibly expensive venture, and we can't really get it to all the places we need.
Okay, so it's years away.
We have the ability, and if and when the fire chief he had plans for buying another tanker truck, that just makes it even better for us. But the sewer thing, we're working on a couple of different avenues to that. It's not going to be an easy sell, and it's not going to be something that's here soon, but it is on the plate. I got a fork stuck in it.
So we're years away.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you. That's good enough.
Yep.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you, Joe.
I'm done.
I was just wanting to make a comment. I was reading about where community sharing is soliciting volunteers to assist with getting donations. And I was just wondering if we could get some more updated information on how that's going and how all of us could help, maybe for the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll probably, let's see, Doris Landry, you're on board here. Would you like to speak to that? Caught you off guard, didn't I?
I was working on the plan as we speak. Would you elaborate a little bit more, Mrs. Lewis?
I was just wondering, how you were going to go about, if you're going to have fundraisers or what you were thinking about to, have donations for the new building.
Okay, yes, we have a marketing plan, and it is going to be launched on April 20th. The initial plan is more social media, as well as some traditional elements like mailing letters to businesses, individuals, churches, the townships, and those will be traditional letters. Social media will be Facebook, where our president will introduce the launch on April 20th. And then we will have an additional 4 days of video snippets asking for donations. Our plan thereafter is to do asking for donations once a month, but give weekly updates about the campaign as well as the building. We will be sending out an email via MailChimp to 2,600 addresses that we have. That will also be going out on April 20th. The website will go up, and that's where we're at right now.
Great. That sounds great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Doris.
Thank you.
Yes, Joe.
I missed public comment really quick. I want you to understand Town and Country Cleaners in Milford We cleaned all the US flags that we removed from the poles, and most all of them were going to be worthy again to fly. And we'll be putting those up sometime in the next couple of weeks. So Town and Country donated the cleaning of all the flags. So remember them when you go there into town, okay?
Thank you, Joe.
All right.
All right, Gary, we've got an introduction that Gary would like to do. Maybe some of you have seen this face of a, I'm gonna say young lady, it looks like to me, in a yellow room. So Gary, you want to go ahead?
So last things first, this is my last meeting with you folks, unless I can figure out a reason to have a special one between now and May. I'll give that some serious thought, but it's been a pleasure working with you. I've worked with many different boards and commissions and councils over the years, and I can honestly say you've been the most enjoyable group to work with, so I will miss that. You are going to be left in good hands. Over on screen 2 is the attorney that's going to be taking care of your meetings and primary responsibilities. Her name is Lisa Hamami. She has been with our firm for probably longer than I'm, 2 or 3 years at least. She is the attorney right next door for White Lake and some other communities. You've already met Joellen shortly. She's going to be working with Lisa to take care of Highland Township's needs. And as I've at least shared with Rick, for a transition period of several months, I'm going to continue to be available in case they have any questions on Highland matters that my institutional knowledge, if you can call it that, might be of help to them. So anyway, wanted to make sure the first time you saw Lisa was not at your May meeting, and she may want to have a few words with you, and as well as Joellen. But again, thanks for working with me. It's been a true pleasure.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
You're a great man.
You're always very generous, Joe.
You haven't heard all my jokes yet, so.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. You know what? We start with when I started on the board, we didn't have an attorney at the meetings, and it sure made a big difference. So, do appreciate it. You've helped us on so many things, and it's greatly appreciated. So, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, so Lisa, you want to introduce yourself?
Very efficient meeting, I have to say. We just over an hour, and you had a pretty heavy agenda, so I'm very impressed. Thanks, Gary, for the introduction. I have been a municipal attorney for over 20 years now, so I do have the experience and the background that you need. I will never be able to fill Gary's shoes, but I'll keep trying for you. As Gary did indicate, I do represent White Lake Township. I represent the city of South Lyon, Holly Township as well, and Handy Township. So townships are my forte, and I am very excited to work with you all.
Well, thank you.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
And thank you, Gary, for putting up with us. And Lisa, I apologize in advance.
I have to ask, is that the Sunshine Skyway behind you?
That is the Mackinac Bridge.
Oh, okay. My second favorite bridge.
That's a crosswalk across her swimming pool.
So,
Gary, quick question. Once you retire, can you come out sometime and just visit us?
If I have to get something from Colasantes, maybe.
Okay, good.
You'll have to swing by and see the new building.
I still haven't seen Rick's playground. I got to get out there for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Good.
well, you know, the reason Gary thinks it's enjoyable or fun is because there's no better TV show than Highland's own reality TV show. And so we appreciate all those who have been the actors and players in this game, and we like to keep it as comfortable as possible. So Lisa, I think you'll enjoy it, and Joelle, you'll be more than welcome to come on anytime, and when you're bored, and watch us in action. So or show up in reality whenever we get to do that soon. So I have to say that I kind of grown to like these Zoom meetings for some reason. I don't know why, but it would be nice to see you in real life. So,
There's
because
just
you're not
no
wearing
kicks
shoes
under
and
the
socks.
table.
yeah.
And there's no kicks under the table.
Gary's shoes on right now, and Gary's got her shoes on, so, and we can't see that. So that's how she.
Hey,
knows she's not gonna
I
fit.
saw Anthony at the cleaners today. He witnessed the transformation of the flags. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, Joe, good to see you. Thank you for your service.
He can't hear us.
He heard it. He heard you. All right. Well, on that note, thank you everybody that showed up. Kevin, good to see you. Rose, are you really down there in Florida, or is that just a fake picture? So thanks for coming. Appreciate it. And on that note, meeting adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.